Today is the 5th day of the workshop, and I'd like to talk about the experience I had while meditating. I will speak about the meditative process, in particular, about enlightenment, which you will have to go through in the future. So I would like you to listen carefully. All right. First of all, let's think about the purpose of meditation. For this, I must first explain what our consciousness is. Consciousness consists of subconsciousness and superficial consciousness enveloping it. Superficial consciousness is also called real consciousness. We usually think about something using this real consciousness. Besides, we only know how our real consciousness works. However, although we use surface consciousness when thinking about things, the driving force behind it is the subconscious mind. Surface consciousness functions by receiving commands from the subconscious mind. Is that clear? So meditation begins. With meditation, we get closer to the subconscious mind. As you progress in spiritual practice, you become able to know the subconscious mind. It is the opposite of superficial awareness. It is straightforward and instinctive. How would you explain it? It only recognizes yes or no. For example, it either loves or doesn't. There is no middle ground. There is no such thing as loving just a little bit or having only a little hunger. In short, there can only be two poles in it. On the other hand, superficial consciousness is quite different from subconsciousness. Of course, surface consciousness begins to act upon receiving a command from the subconscious mind. However, unlike the subconscious mind, it does not go to extremes. Using data taken from its experience, it makes an analysis and reasoning, something like this. I think this amount of food will be enough for me, or, because this food looks delicious, I could eat this amount of food. And then you start eating. So we have two conflicting consciousnesses at the same time. When you reach a certain level in your practice, you also become incapable of distinguishing which is the surface consciousness and which is the consciousness. You stop distinguishing between the two. Sometimes you are subconscious. Sometimes you have superficial consciousness working. At this stage, there is a splitting of personality tie. Before attaining liberation, a practitioner inevitably has to face a split personality. Without overcoming it, it is impossible to come to attainment. Do you understand? To successfully go through this stage, you will need a place to practice, as you will not be able to lead a normal life in society. In the worst cesarean, you may be sent to a psychiatric hospital. But the spiritual community will be able to protect you. This should never be forgotten. I would like to add a few more words about this period of mental instability. Most of the time you will be using only the subconscious mind, and the surface consciousness will be only marginally involved. You will have to go through this because eventually, you will have to use only the subconscious mind to attain liberation. During this period, worldly desires affect you directly. After you reach attainment, using only the subconscious mind is no longer a problem, because worldly desires then disappear. But as long as worldly desires exist, they affect the subconscious mind and you are in a difficult state. As I told you, there are only two extremes in the subconscious, and therefore worldly desires manifest themselves. Nevertheless, those who have been engaged in spiritual practice in their past lives and those who, accumulating merit to the best of their ability, are practicing in this life will be able to pass through this stage with only slight deviations in behavior. Next, how the superficial consciousness and the subconscious mind work. Let me repeat. The subconscious mind sets the surface consciousness in motion. The surface consciousness acts by following the commands of the subconscious mind. Suppose the subconscious mind commands, I want sexual gratification. This stress can be relieved only by having intercourse with a man, woman. Having received such a command, the consciousness searches for a suitable partner of the opposite sex. Right? If they can't find a suitable object, the man goes to some fun neighborhood. Through ejaculation in men and orgasm in women, superficial consciousness is satisfied and sexual desire at the level of superficial consciousness disappears. What about the subconscious mind that gave the command? It looks calmed down for a while, but it retains the desire. Do you know why? For example, if someone has a desire for a partner of the opposite sex, the reason is not just because they just want to have intercourse. In this case, various desires are mixed in a complex way: love, peace of mind, undivided possession of a partner, sexual satisfaction, and so on. It is impossible to fulfill all the conditions for the satisfaction of this desire. And remaining unsatisfied, the desire persists. Therefore, the subconscious mind soon begins to give commands again. It is an unceasing cycle. If such an experience reaches an endpoint, we experience suffering. I won't go into this further, since I've talked about this topic before. So we enter the state of meditation. Beginners meditate as hard as they can at the level of surface consciousness. Let's take Jnana Yoga meditation as an example. For example, you're analyzing why you have sexual desire. You may think it has to do with watching a pornographic movie yesterday or drinking something arousing, or you may think that sexual desire is instinctive. However, all of this is far from the point. Try to pass these conditions one by one. If you hadn't watched a pornographic movie yesterday, sexual desire wouldn't have arisen today. Indeed, it would not have arisen today, but it could have arisen tomorrow. Let's say you think sexual desire arose because you saw a picture of a naked woman. But if you hadn't seen her, it wouldn't have arisen. It wouldn't. Let's now think about appetite. You might say that you felt hungry and went in to eat because, as you walked down the street, you smelled a delicious curry. However, even without that smell, could you go without food forever? Someone might say, I was exercising, so I got hungry and ate. Is that the case? Would you be able to go without food without exercising? Could you go on? Following this approach to desires, you begin to think, wait, all of this may be a hint at the nature of desires. There must be something that gives the primary information that causes this desire. That something that gives the primary information that gives rise to that desire is our subconscious mind. Between superficial consciousness and the subconscious mind, there is an intermediate state, something akin to sleep. It is a state of distraction, of forgetfulness. Therefore, when, having reached a certain level, with meditation you discard the surface consciousness, you become incapable of thinking, being in a state of distraction and forgetfulness. This is quite understandable because the surface consciousness with which you have been thinking up to now disappears. And in addition, sometimes you return to superficial consciousness, and sometimes you pass into the subconscious mind. This, as I mentioned before, is a state of split personality. By the way, those who have been doing spiritual practice since their past lives have a thinner layer of superficial consciousness. That is why some people among them have a split personality process from birth. But there is nothing to be ashamed of. It only shows that such a person has been trying hard to get rid of his or her superficial consciousness from past lives. Now, after surface consciousness has completely disappeared, we enter the world of the subconscious. As I said before, desires either exist here or do not. There are only two extremes. It is straightforward. For example, if you have a sexual impulse during meditation, it immediately turns into a sexual vision. As soon as there is a stimulus related to the desire for food, you immediately have a vision of food. The same thing will happen in the dream state. As soon as you want to see someone for whom you have not just a sexual attraction, but a real feeling of love, you can immediately talk to him. That's how our subconscious mind works. Thus, the subconscious mind is very easy to understand because it is simple. So if the data substitution goes smoothly, without difficulty, you can make it clear and transparent. What we're going to talk about now is related to the theme of the last video. Our soul, our true ego, because of the interference of the three gunas, has been pulled into this life of delusion. Do you remember the stage of distinction in this process? This is the stage where the true ego experiences the astral world. Are you listening? This is important. The subconscious mind is connected to the astral world. By controlling the subconscious mind, you can erase the experience of the astral world. That is, you can go back to the distinction stage and stop the process that follows. There are 3 ways to do this. The first is to no longer accumulate karma and wait for it to disappear. This becomes possible because, with the help of your subconscious mind, you find yourself able to fully understand the discernment process. The second way is to convince the true ego. True ego, this is how you got lost deep in the shadows. It's time to come to your senses. Come out of the darkness. A third way is to introduce ideas contrary to what true ego experienced and erase the memory of previous events. If you destroy the experience in the astral world in this way, it will become transparent and you will be able to understand what the stage of formed experience is, preceding divergence. In the stage of formed experience, you can use samadhi to remove the experience in the causal world. Naturally, the causal world will become transparent and you will be able to understand what the anti-mystical 4th stage is all about. You will realize that the true ego has entered into the process leading to suffering because of the interference of the 3 gunas. And, realizing this, the true ego will get out from under the influence of the 3 gunas. And because your true ego will understand this, it, of its own free will no longer follow the path of suffering. Thus, in the end, the last thing that was left, the anti-mystical power, will disappear. And at that moment liberation and enlightenment will come. You will be able to feel, I am liberated. Do you understand? The described process of liberation has not yet been explained by anyone. Whichever sutra you read, you won't find it there. Now, this is the first time I've clarified it. I think it may be a bit presumptuous of me. However, this is my gift to all of you. Excuse me for changing the subject so often. Let's return to our subject. As you progress in meditation, surface consciousness completely disappears and you enter the world of subconsciousness alone. As you enter subconscious meditation, you are in a state of sleep or near sleep. Thinking activity stops when you do this. Do you understand? But with the practice of merit or the practice of the 6 limits, you can think even in that near sleep state. Then there is the need for spiritual concentration on each of the units of information. Through this, you make your subconscious mind clear and transparent. Before this, I explained what the subconscious mind is by relating it to the process of returning to the stages of discernment, formed experience, and anti-mystical power. This time we will focus all of our attention on the subconscious. Okay? When one stops the work of the subconscious mind completely, he becomes, in a word, a Buddha. A Buddha is a person who has awakened. It is the void. What is emptiness? It is a perfect state where all information is put in order, a state where there are no fixed ideas. This is what I call the void. This is the word that best describes how I felt when I reached this level. It follows from all that has been said before that an important goal of meditation becomes finding an approach to the subconscious mind. As an effective way to achieve this goal, my congregation preaches 4 ultimate practices: sacrifice, keeping the commandments, patience, and persevering effort. However, it will not be easy for you to put them into practice. So I thought of another way to get closer to the subconscious mind. First, when practicing asana, achieve stability in doing a sitting meditation pose. Next, establish control over your chi energy by practicing pranayama. Create a state that allows you to enter the subconscious mind easily. Then use the mudras to move completely into the subconscious mind. And at the stage of entering into the subconsciousness, completely clear the inner world. This is the practice in my community. Probably nowhere in the 6 worlds of the world of passion that stretch from hell to the world of heaven, the world of forms, and the world without forms can you imagine practicing any higher. It is probably better to consider that there is no spiritual practice except in these ways. I would like to explain to all of you in more detail what this spiritual practice is, because it will be of most direct relevance to you. You will be able to enter the subconscious mind with the help of mudras. If you attain this level, I will initiate you into the secret methods of meditation. These secret meditation methods are Guru Yoga, Sandali, and others. With them, you will change your subconscious mind. How do you change it? You will plant the soul sprouts of the great chariot Buddha in your subconsciousness. Then a desire to become a big chariot Buddha will appear in your subconsciousness, and you will decide to devote yourself to the practice of the 6 limits, the 4 great unmeasurable states of the soul, and the activity of salvation. This will accelerate the progress of your practice, and karma will also gradually be purified. However, there are also people here who cannot be purified. People who can't purify themselves are people with strong selfishness. For example, those who think that the world exists for their own sake, those who have a strong desire for material things, and those who have a strong desire for existence. In such people with strong egoism, the gap between their consciousness and the consciousness of the Grand Chariot Buddha is too great. They are dissimilar. Therefore, they will not be able to accept it easily. If they force themselves to do so, they will only become confused. On the other hand, those who have Buddha consciousness as their foundation will have no problem. Do you think liberated and enlightened people have suffered or not? I'm curious about what you think about that. You probably think they have no suffering at all because they are in a state of absolute happiness and absolute freedom. But there is suffering. As long as their physical bodies remain in this world, they cannot detach themselves from suffering. Suffering exists, but there is a known way to deal with it. The ability to deal quickly with suffering, to destroy it, is the peculiarity of liberated and enlightened people. What causes us suffering enters our surface consciousness through our senses. For ordinary people, the information that enters the surface consciousness and causes suffering then enters the subconscious mind and becomes fixed there. This is the worst thing that can happen. Because if it is fixed in the subconsciousness, it is not easy to remove it from there. Moreover, information that has germinated in the subconscious begins to adversely affect the person's behavior or thinking. So he will feel more and more suffering. On the other hand, liberated people can eliminate the cause of suffering even at the stage of its entry into surface consciousness. Through meditation, they can eliminate suffering by merely introducing the opposite ideas. So it is very easy. That's why it can be called absolute freedom and absolute happiness. Of course, they will not have real suffering that is rooted in the subconscious mind. This is not a commercial project. For as many people as possible to come across this information, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment of 8 words or more.